Today, we are diving into one of the great ideological showdowns of the 20th century. It's Gandhi versus Nehru. And it's a battle that was fought over the very soul of a newly independent India. We're going to break down their two just radically different visions, using the work of scholar Partha Chatterjee as our guide.
I mean, think about that for a second. How do you possibly build a new nation when your two greatest founders have blueprints that are, completely at odds with each other? This wasn't just a simple political disagreement. It was a clash over what it even means to be a modern nation. The stakes? Well, they couldn't have been higher.
So, here's how we'll tackle this. First, we'll look at the two competing paths. Then, we'll dig deep into Gandhi's really powerful critique of modernity itself. We'll contrast that with Nehru's vision for a strong, modern state, and then see how these two opposing ideas were kind of smashed together. And we'll wrap up with the big question this whole situation leaves us with. All right, let's get into it.
To really get this, you have to understand that these weren't just two guys arguing. They represent two completely different moments, two different philosophies for what Indian nationalism was all about.
And Partha Chatterjee gives us a great way to think about this. He calls them two moments. On one side, you have the moment of maneuver. That's Gandhi's world. It's this deep, moral attack, not just on the British, but on the whole idea of modern life. Then on the other side, you have the moment of arrival. That's Nehru. That's the pragmatic shift to, okay, we have this mass movement, now what? How do we actually build a state?
So let's really dig into Gandhi's thinking, because it was so much more radical than just wanting independence. He wasn't just trying to change the government. He was trying to tear down the very idea of modern civilization.
See, Chatterjee says Gandhi was launching a critique of civil society. And by that, he means the entire Western package. The politics, the laws, the economics, the whole shebang. For Gandhi, the problem wasn't just that the British were in charge. The problem was the system itself. He saw it as fundamentally corrupting.
And this quote from his book, Hind Swaraj, just says it all. The English have not taken India, we have given it to them. For him, India's problem wasn't British cannons, it was a moral weakness inside India itself. He believed Indians had been seduced by modern ways, and in that seduction, they had basically handed over the keys to their own house.
And this gets us to his core idea, Swaraj. Now we hear this word and think home rule or political independence. But for Gandhi, it was way deeper. It meant self-rule. As in, ruling yourself, mastering your own impulses, your own greed, your own fear. His logic was simple. A nation full of people who can rule themselves can't be conquered by anyone. The moral revolution had to come first.
And he really didn't hold back. He saw big factories and machines as things that just made people poor. He called our modern, endless wants a restless bird. The more you feed it, the hungrier it gets, and it just leads to ruin. And get this, he called parliaments a sterile woman and a prostitute, totally corrupt and useless. He even went after lawyers and doctors, saying they often just made problems worse.
So, what was his alternative? It wasn't just another modern country with a different flag. No way. His vision was for an India made up of thousands of self-sufficient, self-governing villages. A nation held together by moral truth and inner strength, not by some big, powerful central government.
Okay, take a breath. Now let's flip the coin completely and look at his chosen successor, Jawaharlal Nehru. Because if Gandhi wanted to turn away from modernity, Nehru wanted to sprint toward it at full speed.
This is what Chatterjee calls the moment of arrival. For Nehru and his allies, the time for abstract philosophy was over. It was time to actually govern. The job was to build a strong, independent India that could compete in the 20th century. And to do that, they needed to use the very tools from the West that Gandhi despised.
And you can't get a clearer contrast to Gandhi than this quote right here. For Nehru, the way to fix India's poverty wasn't the humble spinning wheel. It was the factory. It was large-scale industry. He was all in on adopting the latest technique to build a nation up.
So Nehru's vision was basically the inverse of Gandhi's. Where Gandhi saw moral corruption, Nehru saw progress and solutions. He put his faith in science, not spiritual truth. He wanted a strong, centralized government, not a loose collection of villages. And he believed that massive, state-planned industrialization was the only real weapon to fight poverty.
So what do?
You have two completely different, totally irreconcilable visions from your two most important leaders. Somebody has to win, right? Well, not exactly. And this is where the story gets really, really fascinating. This is the moment of synthesis.
To understand how this happened, we have to talk about Chatterjee's big idea, the passive revolution. What does that mean? Basically, it's how the educated nationalist elite, the Nehru camp, took control. They took this incredible energy from the peasant masses that Gandhi had mobilized, and they channeled it into a political project that they would control from the top down, all without a major civil war or upheaval.
And this chart just makes the differences so stark. I mean, look at the state. Gandhi wanted decentralized villages. Nehru wanted a strong central government. Look at the economy, village self-sufficiency versus massive industrialization. The guiding force? Moral truth versus science. They were literally trying to build two different worlds.
So how did this passive revolution actually play out? Well, it was a kind of four-step process. First, Gandhi works his magic. He connects with millions of Indians using a powerful moral and spiritual message they understand. Step 2, this gives the Congress Party, the main nationalist group, incredible legitimacy. Step 3, Nehru's faction takes that popular support and uses it to build their vision of a strong, modern state. And finally, Step 4, the raw, revolutionary energy of the Gandhian masses gets contained and redirected by this new state machine.
And that right there is the key. That's the synthesis. At the end of the day, the structure of modern India is Nehru's vision. It's industrial, it's centralized, it's state-driven. But it could only be built by using the methods and the incredible popular support that Gandhi had created. Nehru basically built his modern state on a foundation laid by its biggest critic.
So where does that leave us? This historic compromise, this weird fusion of total opposites, left India with a really complex and, you might say, unresolved legacy.
And Chatterjee has this killer line that sums it up. He says Gandhi's truth, that very specific, very radical moral attack on modernity, it got watered down. It was subsumed under the rational monism of historical progress. That's a fancy way of saying it just got folded into the standard story that every nation is supposed to become a modern industrial state. Gandhi's radical alternative was lost.
And what you get is the India we see today, a nation chasing a very Nehruvian future, full of science, industry, and state power, but using the political language and drawing on the mass appeal that it inherited directly from Gandhi, its greatest spiritual leader.
And that leaves us with the big, unanswered question at the heart of it all. Was this compromise a work of genius? Did India get the best of both worlds? The popular, moral legitimacy of Gandhi combined with the practical state-building of Nehru? Or was a truly radical, maybe more profound moral vision sacrificed at the altar of state power? That's a question that India is still grappling with today.